Knudson. My name is Thomas Hura. I serve as president of City Club, and I'm pleased to welcome you to another of the many forums we've held since 1990 in the name of our mission to build community vision through open inquiry. City Club of Eugene is lucky to be a trusted, open, and independent voice for Eugene area community members to be heard. And as a lifelong Eugenian, I dare say the community is lucky to have the City Club and to hear from our program guests and questions from the audience, whether here in the beautiful Wow Hall, online, or over the radio. We believe these kinds of gatherings around critical community topics strengthen our understanding of one another and ultimately our ability to support the community building work in so many sectors of Eugene. In today's fractured information landscape, we want to be a space where you can participate in unearthing, disseminating, and sharing relevant information in conversation together. We would love for you to browse our past programs at cityclubofeugene.org or our YouTube or Facebook. Do consider becoming a member if you'd like to support our work as the only city club in Oregon that meets weekly. Recently, I was in talks with the Eugene Public Library about receiving some archival recordings from our decades of programs, and they sent a photo of a few whole shelves of physical media. And upon zooming in, I saw a box with a pink Post-it note on it that said, City Club Cassettes, 1993 to 1994. That's approximately when I was born. So we appreciate your long-standing support of this organization. There are many ways to support and collaborate with us, and I'd like to thank our Platinum and Diamond community sponsors. The University of Oregon has helped Oregonians question critically, think logically, reason effectively, communicate clearly, and act creatively, and live ethically since 1876. Get more information at uoregon.edu. Lane Community College transforms lives through learning. LCC provides comprehensive, accessible, high-quality educational opportunities that promote student success. For more information, visit lanecc.edu. Thank you to the City of Eugene and to Lane County for their generous support as well, and a special acknowledgement of our most recent Sapphire sponsor, Summit Bank. We're proud to do our banking at Summit, and we're grateful for the contributions of Summit's employees to our club and community. I'll give a quick reminder to silence all cell phones in the hall, and with that, I'll turn the mic over to the coordinator of today's program, Sandra Bishop.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here. As Thomas said, my name is Sandra Bishop. I'm glad to see so many of you here today when we have this great opportunity to spend some time with the mayor and really drill down on some of the issues that are challenging our city. One of the KLCC news reporters, Rebecca Hanson-White, an award-winning news reporter, will be interviewing the mayor today. And then after the interview section of this program, there'll be Q&A. So we'll take a 5-minute break, and we really encourage you to talk with the people around your table. If you don't know each other, introduce yourself, people on the side, talk to each other. Come up with questions that are relevant to the people at your table or that you're sitting near. Out of respect for the fact we think we're going to have a lot of questions, please keep your questions short. There's going to also be questions not only from the room, but also online. So please don't be tempted to make a speech about your favorite issue. We all have them. We've all done that in the past. So if you have a complaint about the city or you need to talk to the mayor about something, call her office. They are very responsive. You can set up an appointment to go into depth. So please, if possible, keep your questions to about a minute, and we'll keep things flowing today. So thank you again for spending this time with us. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Rebecca. Thank you.
All right. Can everyone hear me okay? There we go. Thank you so much, everyone at City Club, for joining us, for our radio listeners and our listeners watching online to City Club. We appreciate you so much for being here and your attention. I think Kaarin had a few words she wanted to say before we officially got started, and then we'll get right into the substance.
Thank you, Rebecca, and everyone, hello. It is such a pleasure to be back with you at City Club today, and hello to everyone within Eugene, Southern Oregon, who's listening as a part of our audience right now on KLCC. I was grateful for the opportunity to join you today to kick off this year of programming at City Club. think everyone here knows how much I care about our community's dialogue and the way that we are working together on solutions, and City Club plays an incredibly important role in that work. And this opportunity to see you all here together today, but also hopefully for you to carry conversations out of this room and into our community, I hold dear to my heart and is a really important part of what makes this city such a wonderful place to call home. So thank you for the opportunity to be here. I told Rebecca I would share just a couple of minutes, or maybe even just a minute, of opening remarks. And in thinking about the opportunity to join you all and the remarkable privilege and responsibility it is to be a mayor of our beautiful and progressive and burgeoning and forward-thinking community, this is an extraordinary time. And some of the questions that City Club asked me in coming today was, sort of what's been expected, what's been unexpected as you've stepped into office in this first year. And having been your mayor for about 8 months, I can tell you that there are areas of work that I'm incredibly proud of, that we are setting out courses of action and plans and seeing progress towards outcomes related to our crisis of housing affordability, related to homelessness, related to public safety, the vibrancy and accessibility of opportunity in this community. And those are all things that I'm really proud of. And I will also say that this has been an extraordinary time, I think, for our community and for our country, because I have never experienced a time when there has been such a focus from the federal level on division and persecution of people. And I've never seen a time when our community and our state, which holds true to its values in laws and in the way that we protect people who are a part of our community and the rights that we all have here, I've never seen a time where that has felt so adversarial. And that creates a really challenging context for your city, for your county, for your state. But I'm part of the reason why I was excited to be here today is simply to reassure to you all my commitments to our shared values, to protecting people here, to the rights that we hold dear, and to the future that we are trying to build in this community as a more inclusive, as a more equitable, as a more sustainable and opportunity-rich place. And I could not be more excited to be a part of building that future. And I hope that while we are weathering this extraordinary time together and looking for ways to work together in new ways, being creative, leveraging our strengths, finding new ways to connect, that we will stick together and that we will commit to working together towards a shared future and shared prosperity in this community. So thank you for the opportunity to be here today, and I'm looking forward to answering a lot of questions, both from Rebecca and also from everyone who's here.
All right. Well, I know the first issue I wanted to talk to you about was housing, which I think during your campaign was kind of your signature issue. Eugene has a middle housing code now. It has a fund to support affordable housing projects. What do you think is next for Eugene to do to support our community's housing needs?
Oh, thank you for this as a first question. So, Rebecca, and you all likely know, I'm a licensed architect in the state of Oregon. And before becoming your mayor, I'd spent almost a decade working in collaboration with dozens of partners in our community on collective action work, collective impact work related to our housing crisis. And those two examples that Rebecca shared are work to re-legalize housing options across our city and allow for incremental change and greater affordability and housing that meets the diversity of household types that we have in our community, as well as our efforts to bring funding to affordable housing within our community. Those were really important outcomes in that almost 10 years of work, and I'm excited about where we are headed next. Looking at our community, thinking about the city of Eugene, there is a great connection between the housing need that we have that is quite documented. And when I say housing need, now I'm referring to both the housing need that we project as a part of our population change, but also the housing that we need to meet the crisis of homelessness in our community, people who currently do not have access to housing, needing to make sure that everyone in our community has access to housing, and then also addressing the fact that we have not produced housing over decades in alignment with the housing that we have planned for. And what that means, those three issues together, underproduction, the crisis of homelessness, and needing to account for population change in our community, all of that adds up to what our housing need is. When you look at our community, I see an extraordinary opportunity for us to think about how it is that we are accomplishing our needs with housing, how we are building housing to suit our community's needs, that is affordable to people here, that is accessible for people here, that also supports the quality of experience in our neighborhoods, and especially the vitality of the center of our city. Downtown Eugene has an incredibly important role to play in meeting our community's housing needs. All cities that are thriving economically, environmentally, socially, have a strong downtown core, have a strong center. And our downtown core has been the topic of discussion and an area of concern for a lot of years, decades, literally. But what we have never accomplished is a significant addition of new people. The energy, the dreams, the life that comes from neighbors living in a downtown neighborhood, in a community, and the way in which that transforms that environment, that it supports all of the extraordinary amenities that we have in our city center. Not everywhere has the kind of amazing small restaurants and cafes and businesses and incredible performing arts venues that we have in the center of our city. Not everywhere has that, but what our downtown is missing is the neighbors that activate that place every day, not just on special events and special weekends or for when Jerry Seinfeld is at the Holt Center, but every day. And that vitality of neighborhood and community life is what we can work on by bringing much more housing into our downtown. So a downtown housing initiative, a focus in collaboration and working intensively with our community to be creative and bold, but really focused on outcomes for our city center. That will be a central focus of my work in this next year and over these coming years. I'm proud to say that we have about 1,000 units, approaching 1,000 units of housing, affordable housing, workforce housing, market rate housing in the pipeline through the few programs that our city directly supports and engages with. That includes new affordable housing at the downtown riverfront, supported by our Riverfront Urban Renewal, new market rate housing at the downtown riverfront, supported by Riverfront Urban Renewal, housing in downtown adjacent to our central lane transit district, transit hub, and new projects that our Affordable Housing Trust Fund has made possible. That 1,000 units is important, but it is something that needs to be a typical condition, not an extraordinary condition, year after year for us to build our way out of this housing crisis. We need to change the trajectory of housing production in this community, and downtown is a place where we can concentrate housing that will help us meet all sorts of sustainable, environmental, social, and economic goals at the same time and build a stronger city, a more vibrant city, while we are doing it.
And I also wanted to, we're downtown right now in Wow Hall, and there's a conversation happening right now kind of between business owners and their customers that are coming downtown where they feel that it's not safe here, but that there's also people who support people who are living in crisis and those experiencing homelessness where they feel like they're being unfairly scapegoated. How do we balance that perception of safety issue to make downtown feel safer without pushing anyone out?
I think that's a really important framing of this question, because one of the challenges that your city carries every day is how to balance an extraordinary diversity of needs and meet those needs within our community. And when I think about downtown, I want this to be a place where everyone feels like they are accessing opportunity and they are living in what they perceive to be one of the very best places in the world. And they can feel that in the charm and the experience and the opportunities that they have access to in our city. I'm in direct conversation with some of our downtown stakeholders and community leaders about how it is that we take some of these shared steps, collaborative steps into the future, how we think about bringing more economic development into our city center, how we can support small businesses in our community, how that connects with the work of our public safety efforts and community safety. And that whole picture turning together is what supports a vibrant downtown. In terms of public safety in downtown, I'm in touch with people all the time about their daily experiences in our city center. And some of those experiences are exceptional. And they want to share what they did, what they saw, what they experienced that was just simply awesome. And they're so proud of it being in our city center. Some of those conversations are about the opposite, are about frustrations, people feeling unsafe, people wondering why it is that there is not more vitality within the public realm and a more sociable environment within the public realm. And that's an area where we need to work collaboratively to address, to make sure that when people are dealing with the crisis of homelessness, that we are able to navigate them and support them to an experience with shelter, to long-term sustainability or stability in their own life, access to recovery or behavioral health services within our community. Those are other areas where we're working. There'll probably be other questions about those specific topics. But we need to be doing that work. And I also think not just accepting the idea that until we have perfectly solved social problems that no community in the world has perfectly solved, that we can't also be building a city center that really feels welcoming to families and kids every day of the week. There are so many fun things happening between our farmers markets and different events at the Market Pavilion, weekend events that our kids and families come to in our city center. But what I am always looking for is that proof and that evidence every day that people feel like this is their neighborhood too. So we have to work in partnership, and that's with EPD, that's with downtown stakeholders, that's with members of the community, and I'm very hopeful actually about this next chapter of work, because we are seeing real progress in our statistics from Eugene Police in terms of what is actually happening on the ground in downtown with crime or with experiences where police need to intervene. Our police have been accessible and initiating contacts that is addressing criminal behavior when it's present. But not all of the issues in downtown that we have to deal with are criminal behavior, and they need a different response that is going to be effective at addressing the circumstance. Not just a very expensive way of sending an officer to do work that probably is better suited to someone skilled in navigation, behavioral health, and the ability to connect that person into services and shelter.
And that also brings me, I know, alternative response, Cahoots, is not operating in Eugene right now. I know that there was some funds set aside to figure that out. Where is the conversation about alternative response in Eugene right now?
Another great question. I was hoping that would be a follow-up to this discussion. So as probably everyone in this room knows, it has been an adventurous last couple of months in terms of our community's access to mobile crisis response. And in the spring, with changes at Whitebird and Cahoots, the city and also our partners in Lane County and at Lane County, we've now essentially shifted our mobile crisis response to the Lane County mobile crisis system. That is a system that is operating 24/7, that is funded through our state, not through our general fund, and is working to intervene and meet the needs of that mobile crisis response in its highest acuity in our community. Does that response meet the entirety of our community's needs is our question to answer at this point. And when Rebecca alluded to the funds that have been allocated through City Council's budgeting process, really what we're talking about is creating the opportunity to learn what the current gap in our needs is. With Lane County Mobile Crisis standing up and providing those high acuity mobile crisis services across all of Eugene, what still do we need in order to be the community that we dream of being and to meet the complexity of human needs that are present in our community. That's the work that we're doing right now. I know that there are also dedicated members of staff who used to work with Whitebird and the Coots organization who are also working on how it is that that model moves forward into the future. And what I'm hoping is that we can use this time to learn about what our needs actually are in the community, where intervention is needed, where navigation is needed, and then what will happen in terms of a public process is there will actually be a request for proposals put together if we get to that point with City Council, and then that will be a competitive process to meet that outlined list of services through the community. That's how your city government has to work to be accountable with funds, and we of course will pursue that process, and I think we're going to learn a lot in this next several months.
I also wanted to talk about our city's finance process. I think for everyone, this last budget process was a pretty difficult one. And I know there was a commitment at the very end of it to find long-term solutions to Eugene's funding challenges. Where are those conversations at, and is there any strategies that are potentially on the table that you or others are talking about?
Sure, and that, what was just alluded to was an important part of where our city's budgeting process ended this past spring. So to catch those of you up who maybe have not been following this incredibly closely, when I stepped into office last January, there was still an $8 to $11 million gap in our city's budget that we needed to address. And the work to come to a conclusion about how we were going to address that gap in our budget was a significant area of work at City Council and within our community's conversations through winter into spring, all the way up until really July, when our budget was adopted in mid-July. What I would say long-term and big picture, and I have said this in other conversations, is that when we invest in intensive process together, when we sit around tables and we are trying to work a problem and work towards solutions, ideally, when you come to the conclusion of that intensive process, you have generated agreement about the path forward. And I think that that is the challenge to us, was the challenge to us in this last budgeting cycle, is that there had been an intensive multi-year process to address the revenue gap, but there was a real feeling that from some in the community that the city had not looked enough at all sorts of other options for how to close that gap. The work that we'll do in the future is, I hope, to leverage insight from across our community to be able to put forward proposals that have broad community support, and also make sure that everyone in this community understands just how challenging it is for our city to meet the demands of our community and the needs of our community, and also the complexities that are unique to a city budget that are very different from a household or a small business. The constraints and the requirements and the complexities are very, very different. And I am committed to you all and to our community to do a better job of simply offering access to that information and sort of road showing in this next year our city's budget, so that more people understand why this work is challenging and the difficult trade-offs that we have to weigh when we are required to balance our revenues and our expenses on a biennial budget every time. That's work I'm actually really looking forward to. I think there are many leaders within our community, from our services and our nonprofit community and our advocacy community, but also from our business community and from our financial community, who are very interested in helping us to do a better job with this work and to making sure that more people understand this challenge. So the work that we are looking at into this fall will be laying out plans for outreach and engagement, ways that I, as your mayor, will be out and talking with you in neighborhood groups and community conversations over this coming year, but also how we can leverage technical insight to our city's finances and understand with that new perspective, because there are a lot of people at the City of Eugene who are have great technical expertise related to finance and public budgeting and that work, but to see if there are new solutions and creative ways in which we can help to close some of these gaps and position our city in a more sustainable way financially for years to come. Oregon is a tricky place to sort all of this out, given the constraints that we have in our, based on decisions made 30 years ago with Measure 5 and Measure 50. That creates a particularly challenging context when you're also thinking about new development and the importance of property tax being a support to our community's needs. There's a whole question that we could probably spend an hour on right there. But all this to say that this is going to be a focus of our work. I think it's really important to the community, and I think it's really important that our community also have more access to information and feel like they really understand this problem that we're trying to solve, because then the solutions will make more sense.
And I know one proposal that was in the news this week to sort of address one of these challenges is there's a lot of firefighters, both Eugene and Springfield, that want their own district because they feel like they don't have enough staff to meet the community's needs right now. And it's that, I guess I wanted to ask you if you had thoughts on that proposal and if you felt like that might be a sustainable idea.
I think that there's a lot of background to that issue alone, actually, the idea of a fire district. And this is another example of an area where it's really important for us as a community to have a better shared understanding of what our alternatives are and the problem that we're trying to solve. One of the reasons why I so wanted us to be able to work to a solution with our city's budget this last June and not spend this entire year in trenches in a fight at the ballot box over a relatively small amount of money in the grand scheme of things, thinking about the life of city over years and decades, generations, is because we have other work to do on issues like fire governance. Everyone in this room probably knows that Eugene Springfield Fire merged over a decade ago operationally to drive efficiencies in terms of cost and be able to meet our community's emergency response needs. And through the work of incredible professionals, incredible leadership and technology, we've been able to continue doing that. But the question of governance, the structure of our merged fire departments has never been completed. That administrative step has never been completed. One of the challenges of this work is it's really wonky in comparison to the issues that are on the ground every day in front of our community and our families. I'm talking about the governance structure of your already merged Eugene and Springfield fire departments. But this is really important work for the future of our community. And there is one study that's been prepared that's looked at essentially four or five different options for how we might organize Eugene Springfield Fire into the future, all the way from the complete separation of the departments again to the merger of them into a larger fire district. I think that that's what specifically you're referring to the union's discussion of, and there may be a conversation at City Club in the future about that possibility. But over this fall, there will be conversations at Council helping to bring current our understanding of these alternatives and lay out the choices for our community, because at the end of the day, this is a decision that our community will make. And right now, I think that a lot of people need a lot more information before it would be reasonable for them to say this answer or this answer is the one that I'm sure that we should pursue.
And I also wanted to talk about healthcare. This might be our last question before we take a break for our audience questions. I know before she left office, Mayor Lucy Venus was in conversation to find a way to replace our emergency room, which closed. And I was curious if those conversations were continuing with you, if you're doing work to try to recruit more healthcare providers or maybe another emergency room into our community.
Yes, and I will say, because the question about access to healthcare in our community, there are a couple of different things that I would love to share. One, several of you have probably seen that conversations with McKinsey-Willamette and a standalone emergency room in Eugene, in West Eugene, near Chambers, And 6, that conversation has continued to move forward. A standalone emergency room is an unusual outcome within a community. It's not a typical condition where you have an emergency room separate from a hospital. Oftentimes people are going to the emergency room and receiving services and then maybe being checked directly into a hospital. But in many cases, people now are also using our emergency rooms simply because we do not have adequate access to healthcare services in a non-emergency format. So that conversation, that project continues to move forward. I don't have a lot of new information to share, except for to say that what you all know to be true is that Eugene cares a lot about people having access to healthcare and to services. The 2 other pieces of this puzzle that I wanted to be sure to share today is also thinking broadly about how it is that we provide access and some of the really remarkable work that has also been happening in our community in different ways. One of those examples is just recently, many of you probably saw the announcement from Bushnell about their announcement of essentially new health professions school of health professions, and the work to grow their capacity and bring more nurses into our community. From my understanding and conversation with Bushnell, the majority of those nurses that we are graduating within our community are moving right over to Peace Health and are the people who are helping folks when they need services, medical care in our community. And so that increased capacity and that announcement of that increase in capacity is really important long term. The other story to share is an example of what I so often think of as part of the core DNA of our community. And this is a social innovation, sort of social entrepreneurship that is present through the partnership that Everyone Village has established with 4J Schools, with Peace Health, and with Volunteers in Medicine. And in about another week and a half, there will be the announcement of essentially recuperation cottages and a health clinic integrated at Everyone Village. And that's an example of our nonprofit community serving people who are in the crisis of homelessness, working with extraordinary organizations like Volunteers in Medicine and giving people access to healthcare, partnering with 4J Schools, one of Eugene's 2 school districts, to build the spaces that will allow people to have spaces to recover and recuperate, and having that all in partnership with Peace Health on that site. It's a new model. It's a really exciting outcome within our community, and it is, I think, another beautiful example, many others preceding it, of how this place, Eugene, continues to be a community that sees problems and wants to solve them in a way that is better and in a way that is different, and contribute innovation and be forward-thinking and compassionate and collaborative in our work. And as your mayor, I get to see that all the time in so many different community conversations. And my wish for everyone here, but also everyone listening, is that you also see that more in our community. Be looking for that, because it is actually present in so many different places. And that example that Everyone Village has accomplished, and Pastor Gabe and their whole team, Delisha Mission-Tubby at Volunteers in Medicine, our new 4J superintendent, Dr. Mickelson, and the leadership at Peace Health have made that possible.
All right, and I think do we take a short break before we go to audience questions? Thomas will tell us what we do next.
Thank you. We'll begin our Q&A quite soon, but first a special thank you to our award-winning public radio station KLCC for airing City Club programs on Mondays at 7 p.m. In Eugene, they broadcast on 89.7 FM, and you can often hear Rebecca Hanson-White's coverage there. For those listening at home or in the car right now, your household is one of several thousand tuning in to City Club on KLCC, and we are truly honored to have you. You can also find all recent City Club programs archived at klcc.org, as well as our YouTube channel and the City Club of Eugene podcast. We'll have a short break before returning for your questions.
started on our audience questions. If we could have people sit down. All right. And if we could have our first person in line step up to the mic, please. All right. And if you could introduce yourself and ask your question. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Wendy, and I'm a Eugene native. My name is Wendy, and I'm a Eugene native, born in Sacred Heart. I have many questions, but I think the top of my list is the deficit. And I've always wondered how the deferral of taxes for 10 years to the people that are building these big, ugly apartment houses would affect the budget, because we, the taxpayers of Eugene, are making up for that deficit. Is that correct? And is that still come on for big, wealthy companies to come to Eugene and build more big, ugly apartment houses?
Thank you for that question. And Wendy, thank you. I've had a chance to talk about this issue and the issues related to it in a handful of different community conversations and different neighborhood groups especially. So thank you. I will say at the outset that one of the things that I have seen at our public comment, especially during this really challenging budgeting conversation over the spring, winter and spring this year, was a conflation of dollars when you read a sentence in the newspaper that says, in the city of Eugene, contributing X amount to this project through a multi-unit property tax exemption. The misunderstanding of a tax exemption being the same thing as dollars within our general fund that we can spend on services. Because a tax exemption is essentially a subtraction from a pro forma in the future for a project. In the case of our MUPT program, multi-unit property tax exemption program, it's an incentive program to spur development. And so the question of, do we want for there to be a tool that we can use to help spur development? That conversation in our community has been a resounding yes, because we want to see housing built. We want to see workforce housing built. Our downtown MUPT program is the means through which we are seeking to drive more workforce housing into our city's housing supply. And that's because it is incredibly expensive to build housing, and it's not gotten any less expensive with tariffs on things like aluminum and steel and drywall and everything that goes in as a direct material input to building housing. So some real significant headwinds on that front. But the conversation about MUPT, I do think oftentimes it gets confused, that money in the future as a tax exemption is the same thing as dollars available to pay someone for a service delivered today or tomorrow in real time. And for our community, I do think it is important for us to have tools that allow for us to say, we want more development to be here. We want more development to be of this type. We want there to be workforce housing. And MUPT and our urban renewal funds downtown and at the riverfront are the two primary ways through which we do that. They are programs that include community oversight and committees that review that work. But we've also been working over this past couple of years with a lot of input from the community to try to streamline that process, especially in the areas like downtown, where we very much would like to see the development of new, dense housing, because that is the place within our city where that building type and that scale of housing makes sense. And we have a housing need that is projected into the future of being more than 26,000 units of housing that we need to produce. Our current trajectories of producing housing are, I will just say, small in comparison to the needs that we have. So we have to work on shifts, and we have to work on how it is that the city can be a more active partner in seeing development happen in our community. Now, does that mean that we we don't have any concerns about what is actually built. No, it means we have zoning codes and energy codes and expectations of relationships to the public realm through the design of buildings. That those are opportunities that we have to steer development. But multi-unit property tax exemptions are a financial strategy that our city has to be able to encourage development to happen.
But it's still at our
Wait,
expense,
Wendy,
correct?
Wendy, I'm sorry, we have to do one question per person because we have a lot of people that want to ask questions. If we could have the next person stand up to the mic, thank you.
Yes. Hi, my name is Cameron Stringfield. I'm an organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. Just first of all, boo on the MUPTs. MUPTs are tax breaks for ultra-wealthy landlords that result in ultra-expensive apartments that nobody can afford, and it helps nothing here. But my question is, so I've been involved with an effort to get our local city governments to terminate the flock contracts, and I've been going door to door talking with your constituents about it, and almost nobody supports the AI-powered mass surveillance system of flock. The Eyes Off Eugene petition to cancel flock has over 1,000 signatures. What will you do as mayor to stop this dystopian surveillance system? Also, why after 2 months and even more unconstitutional deportations by ICE have you still not spoken up about ICE's unconstitutional activities at the old federal building here in Eugene?
Thank you, Cameron, for all of those questions. On the topic of the flock cameras, I can share with you all that this week there is a work session poll that's circulating among city council members, and I would expect that there will be a conversation about that technology at city council this fall. That's the indication I have from council leadership, and as you alluded to, I think a lot of questions within the community about how this technology is being used, what safeguards exist, and it's another area where it's important for us to have an open community conversation about what we are trying to accomplish with this technology, how EPD is using cameras at these intersections to be able to identify individuals who in some cases have been engaged with significant criminal activity in our community, things like homicide and sexual abuse, theft of vehicles, a sort of long list of crimes that we do want to be intervening in relationship to. But there are big questions, as you alluded to, about this technology, and I think this fall there'll be an opportunity to discuss that at City Council. Your second question about ICE and interventions in our community, thank you for the opportunity simply to say here, as I have in other community conversations, that the way that this administration is engaging with cities and the way that they are seeking to weaponize and politicize questions about immigration, putting people at risk, putting our community members at risk, harming people, taking people from our community without due process. These are all wrong. It's wrong. It shouldn't be happening. And there are numerous court cases and lawsuits that are being pursued currently that address the question of overreach and the question of due process. And I have been in conversation with folks in our community in efforts to be supportive of people within our community who are feeling legitimate fear and concern, and also to reassure people that our local laws and our state laws are incredibly clear. And if there are no laws being broken at these points of protest between our local community members and federal agents or ICE who are present in our community, Eugene police will not be present because we are not engaged in that work. We will not be engaged in that work. That's a clear statement of value in our community around the rights of individuals. And it is a horrendous circumstance that we are in the place that we are in relationship to how immigration is being addressed, I think, by our federal government. But the City of Eugene's values are clear, and the State of Oregon's values are clear, and we are going to continue to defend those values and the laws that are in place here.
Thank you for speaking up, Mayor.
We have our next person step up to the mic. Thank you, Cameron.
Hi, my name is David Edrington. A few years ago, by removal of the City Hall, the city created a rather large hole downtown, which is fairly lifeless. Does the city feel responsibility for fixing that? And if so, are there proposals in the works for repairing that site?
Thank you for that question. The former City Hall site, center of downtown Eugene, along Pearl and 6th or 7th and 8th. And that site, as many of you remember, is the full block site that was traded for the half block site that is now the city-owned park block site, Lane Farmers Market Pavilion site, and future development site. There is an RFQ out that just concluded for development on the north side, the north quarter block, that would be looking onto and helping to activate that open space in front of the Farmers Market Pavilion, the butterfly lot. And that is the city-owned lot. The former Eugene City Hall site is now owned by Lane County. And I do wonder about the plans in the future that Lane County has for that site. I know there have been aspirations to address the county's needs with a courthouse, but I think there are also probably other aspirations that Lane County has for itself in alignment with its objectives and goals, which our community, there's significant overlap in several of those. And I'd be very interested to see just how much can be accomplished in an entire city block in downtown Eugene, because it's a significant opportunity in our community. And the next time Lane County commissioners are here, I hope you'll come back and ask them that question, David.
Please encourage the county.
All right. We can have our next person. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah Adkisson, and I want to address the road construction in Eugene. I feel like there are many projects going on that perhaps got started in the last administration with all the infrastructure monies that came our direction. And I live out River Road. The bridge onto River Road has started, it started last winter, and it's still going on, and now there's nothing going on there. And I mean, the traffic is phenomenal, and it's really hard to get through there. It's hard to get to town. Yeah, I'm just wondering what's happening with our building projects in Eugene.
It's a great question, and I should have brought the very long list of investments in your community, in your streets and public realm that are ongoing this summer and that will still be under construction over this next couple of months. I think, it's north of $25 million of construction that is a current event related to improving our streets, safety, multimodal improvements, repaving primarily, preserving the surfaces of our streets and addressing potholes. And every year, that work is very intensive from spring into the fall. We try to do that out of the rainy season, and unfortunately what that also means is that there's a lot happening in the summer months in the public realm at the same time when a lot of people are out and walking and biking and wanting to use those spaces. So there are a couple more months. I just spoke with our Public Works and Transportation team about this question specifically, and that all of the projects, or almost all of the projects that we had identified for construction this year as a part of our Streets Bond work, which is primarily how this is funded, almost all of it is funded through our Streets Bond work, that those have all been proceeding apace, and you will see accessible intersections and corners and improved crossings and new infrastructure for bikes and pedestrians present as a result of those community investments. In the case of that one project, it's been a real challenge, and I've talked with River Road, Santa Clara neighborhood community organizations about it. I think that there were some challenges in the sequencing with construction, and it's such a pinch point for people that there was a lot of frustration around that intersection. My understanding is that that will be resolved in just this next several weeks as the project completes, but I wish it had not persisted as long, because it's been several months.
Is there a way that I can check, who is the organization that I would check?
Sarah, we've got to give other people opportunities. I'm sorry.
Eugene Public Works and our transportation department, and there's actually an ArcGIS map that shows everyone in the community where there are current projects underway. And you can click on that map and see which intersections, which areas of roadway are being worked on.
Sharon Reed, longtime City Club member, thank you for being here. Yesterday I was walking around downtown and continuing to see more, in my eyes, more for lease signs and so on. I'm seeing lease signs that have been around now a year and a half. My question is, can you say a bit more of how you are interacting with people for pop-ups, for lower leasing or something, buildings that are sitting doing nothing? Can you say more about your efforts there? Thank you.
Sure, thank you, Sharon. And the first thing that I will just offer is that the city does not control how a building owner tenants or uses their space, but we can work in partnership, and we can work in partnership with small businesses. And so I guess first as an outset, though the City of Eugene is often, and I often am the voice that is speaking very directly to our concerns for downtown and our aspirations for our city center, we are not the only agency engaged in that work. And our partnership around economic development, small business support, those are really critical parts of the tenanting circumstance that you just described. Now, I will say very broadly, and being a person who studies cities and really looks at cities when I visit them, I would challenge you to go almost anywhere in the world to a city center, and we are still very broadly struggling with big shifts in terms of bricks and mortar versus e-commerce, in terms of engagement and tenanting of small business spaces, post-COVID, office tenancies. Those have really shifted in this past several years, been significantly disrupted, and almost all cities are dealing with that. I was in San Francisco not that long ago, and I was walking through a neighborhood that I absolutely loved and was remarking, finally started counting, and realized, wow, you know, this neighborhood is, this is not right in the center and Market Street of San Francisco. This is a little bit adjacent, and all of these storefronts are vacant. It's a real challenge for cities much larger than ours, but what I have learned from partnership and collaboration with folks in those places and nationally is that the way cities are making progress in that work is through collaboration with our business partners, with small business owners, economic development strategies, and when we were alluding earlier to the work that we are going to be doing downtown, that is work that I'm very excited about, because the city can be a great support in that effort, and we will be very focused on the public realm and the components of that work that we can directly influence, but we still need the partners to bring their great ideas and their businesses and their entrepreneurial spirit and their energy into our city center. And that almost always is something that works best when you're working in collaboration and a lot of people are engaged with a dream and a vision together. And that's a big part of what our downtown needs. So partnering with our business leaders, with our stakeholder groups, asking and working with our small business owners to understand very specifically the challenges that they're facing and how the city and our partners can support them, that's work that we have to do.
All right, if we could have our next person step up, and we are running low on time, so we can maybe get to one or two more questions if we keep
Thank
it
you, Mayor,
fast.
for being here and for all your good work. I'm Rob Zako, longtime City Club member and Executive Director of Better Eugene Springfield Transportation. As you know, a decade ago, the City of Eugene adopted a goal of no deaths or life-changing injuries on our streets, Vision Zero. A few months ago, the city did an update on that and found that, in fact, the number of deaths in our community has about tripled in the last few years. And it's not just statistics. We've had some high-profile tragedies in our community. A woman running in Amazon got killed. More recently, a U.S. student by the River District. You talked about infrastructure projects, public works projects. Is that sufficient, or what are you hoping to see beyond that to address this increase in deaths, this pandemic of deaths? Thank you.
Thank you, and that is a great question, especially for someone who studies cities and thinks about them a lot. Our transportation networks, you could think about them as the arteries, right? The places that are carrying the life of our community. And to be a resilient community, an affordable community, we really need that system, that network of alternatives to serve a wide variety of people and to offer people the opportunity to safely move around our community without having to pay top dollar for that transportation need, without having to own an additional vehicle in their household, for example, just because there is a second person working who also needs to commute. So the city's work to invest in multimodal infrastructure, in safety improvements, in the accessibility of our transportation network, to partner with organizations like Lane Transit District on how it is that we are improving that public realm space and making sure that there's great accessibility and connectivity to some of the extraordinary transit and frequent transit opportunities that we have. That's certainly a focus in my work, and that's on the design side and the investment side. Specific to the two tragedies that you alluded to, protection and separation from vehicle travel lanes is what creates safety for people who are not also inside of a vehicle. So when we think about things like bicycle infrastructure, protected, separated bicycle lanes, those are places where we know that it is safe for people to be riding their bikes, and also it's going to feel accessible to people. That their kids are going to feel safe riding on that cycle track on High Street from South Eugene to the Shed. That it's a piece of infrastructure designed to support safety and to make sure that people feel comfortable accessing that mode of transportation. We have a lot more work to do on that front in our community. We are not making the progress that we hope to make relative to our climate goals, our climate action plan update, and the updates that we will share this fall in conversations at City Council. Our emissions are essentially flat, and that's not what we are seeking as our outcomes. We're trying to reduce the emissions and pollution that are present in our city, and it's our transportation system that creates most of that pollution. So providing the opportunity for people to safely use other modes, to walk or to bike or to use a bus to get to some of their needs in our community every day is really important. The other piece to that I don't want to forget, though, is that there's also behavior. And for everyone who is hearing my voice right now and operating a vehicle, please do not be distracted while you are driving. Please do not make poor decisions and get behind the wheel. If you are in any way impaired, please be thinking about the fact that when you're driving a vehicle, you are the most dangerous thing to pedestrians and to people who are not also in vehicles. That's a responsibility that we can carry as a community, as individuals, every time we get in the car. Put the cell phone away, put it into a bag, don't have it right there with you, and please have your full attention on operating that 2,000-pound vehicle. We know that people are distracted when driving. We know that in some cases there are real instances of reckless driving within our community, and we know from our reports and our analysis that impairment is also a component. So everyone, please make better decisions and think about your community in a very specific way when you're operating a vehicle.
And that's all the time that we have right now. I know that there's a few people with more questions, but we'll try to connect with you in just a few minutes. Oh, we can take one more question? We can take one more question. I apologize.
Okay, well, I'll be the last one. Betty Taylor, City Club member since 1990. Thank you. I agree that downtown neighborhood is desperately in need of help. I've done a lot of walking downtown. But all neighborhoods need help. And some neighborhoods are suffering from a proliferation of Airbnbs. I tried when I was on council to try to get some regulations. Like some cities have a license for Airbnbs. Some cities require that the owner of the building live on the premises. And some cities limit the number in a certain area. And I think all those things are important to protection of neighborhoods. Thank you.
I don't know if short-term rentals are even planned or imagined to be on the very full council agenda that is for this fall. As many of you know, we are, as a community, and through your city council and your mayor, hiring a new city manager this fall. We are following up on this conversation about fire governance. We are deeply engaging the work that I mentioned around the sustainability of our budget and the ways in which we can improve as a community. And there's also a lot of conversations about community services. our open space, our library, and that those two are about to be in front of your council as they come back into session next Monday on September 9th, about the exact same time that this is on the radio on KLCC. But I do, to just observe former Councillor Taylor's question, the City of Eugene does have a registry for short-term rentals, and many other cities also. I think it might behoove us to look at the fees that are associated with those in terms of how other cities connect short-term rentals into their affordable housing funding strategies. That is a common occurrence in other communities, and it's something that I've heard from people within the community that they would like our council to talk about. So thank you.
Thank you all. Before I do a sign-off, I have marketing videos I'm trying to make to grow the City Club. So if you all wouldn't mind a little friendly wave, I would really appreciate it. All right, that'll look better in post-production. Okay. Thank you all so much. That's all the time we have for today. Please join me in thanking KLCC's Rebecca Hanson-White and City of Eugene Mayor Kaarin Knudson. This has been our September 5th, 2025 conversation at the City Club of Eugene. We'll be back here next week at Wow Hall on Friday, September 12th at noon. That program is called Can We Bring Cahoots Back? The Future of Mobile Crisis Services in Eugene. It's sure to be a great forum, and we're looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you all. Have a great weekend, and see you next time at the City Club of Eugene.